Hey Adventure Junkies, Amanda here. Today I wanted to share with you 3 tips I have for building a 3-point anchor. Quick note, whether you're building a 3-point anchor for a top rope or a top belay scenario, it's essential you make sure your anchor follows these essential recommendations, which are redundancy, being solid, being efficient, and being equalized. So again, just to quickly repeat, you want an anchor that is redundant, solid, efficient, and equalized. So here are a few tips to get you started. Tip number 1, always choose 3 anchor points that are relatively close together. This is because ideally you don't want the angle created between those points when you add the cordelette or the webbing to exceed 90 degrees, as this can increase the chances of one of your anchor points failing. So for example, in my little homemade display here, I have created a makeshift 3-point anchor with only the carabiners pictured. Of course, when you're actually climbing out on the rock, at the end of these carabiners, you're going to have your pieces of protection attached to these, which will be inserted into the rock. I've removed those for this demonstration, but just wanted to let you know. So as you can see here, I have my 3 anchor points. The bottom points being the carabiners with which you will pass through your cordelette or webbing of choice. I like to use Dyneema webbing simply for its strength and a lightweight capacities, but any kind of cordelette or webbing works great. So as you can see, none of the angles are going to extend 90 degrees when I start to equalize the system. So for 3-point anchors, implementing a static form of equalization is best, as opposed to the quad type of anchor, which we covered in a previous video tip and you can find in our climbing group under video tips. So static equalization, what does that mean? This means we're going to be tying off our individual anchor points using a master point knot. So first step is to establish your anchor points, and then you're going to clip your individual anchor points into its 3 different carabiners here, and then you're going to either take your cordelette or webbing of choice and insert these into the carabiners that comprise your anchor system. So next step is we're going to go ahead and join these sections at the bottom. So the best way to do this is to just gently pull down, ensuring that you have 3 rope strands when you get to the base of your system, and at which point you will be forming your master point. So as you can see, I have my 3 different strands here. I have kept the, oftentimes cordelettes have a double fisherman's knot implemented, or some kind of fabric, hard construction that is holding the cordelette together. You just want to make sure this is out of the system. So as you can see, I have my 3 threads here and equalized. So by doing that, I have equalized the system, and it's important to remember that when you equalize the system, you want to equalize it in the direction that your climber is coming up, if applicable, or the direction that your top rope is running. So for example, if I know that the route goes a little bit that way, and as I was coming up I climbed this way, I may want to equalize my system this way, for example. So now that you've equalized your strands, it's time to tie your master point, which can either be a figure 8 or an overhand knot in nature. And then be sure to clip all 3 strands of your master point with a locking carabiner. For redundancy, some people use opposite and opposing a pair of locking carabiners. Little bonus tip, I find an overhand knot much more difficult to untie when I'm breaking down an anchor system, so I've really, especially when using thinner cord, such as a Cuban fiber style alpine sort of anchor, it's a lot harder to untie these if you use an overhand knot, so I often resort to the figure 8 instead. So assuming that our direction of travel, that the climber will be following me up is downward. I'm going to go ahead and tie my knot here. It's very important to keep the equalization between the strands, so you want to keep them equal with the same amount of weight loaded upon each point of protection. And then at the bottom here, you get your master point. So this is the point through which you will be belaying up your climber or running your top rope, if that is what you were using this for. So at this point, we're going to take our carabiner. You want to make sure it has a locking feature. And we're going to flip that upside down to prepare for attachment of a belay system and or top rope setup. And you want to go ahead and lock that carabiner. So that's how you build a 3-point anchor system. Quickly to recap, whether you're building a top rope anchor or a top belay setup, it's really important to ensure that your anchor is redundant, solid, efficient, and equalized. So you want to always choose 3 anchor points that are relatively close together. Ideally, you don't want the angle created between them to exceed 90 degrees. For 3-point anchors, implementing a static form of equalization is going to be your best bet. So this means tying off your 3 individual anchor points using a master knot, which can be either an overhand knot or a figure-8 knot, which you do by running these 3 strands equally in the direction that your rope or climber will be coming up, or your rope will be coming down, in order to ensure that you have an equal load on all 3 anchor points. At this point, you can tie either an overhand knot or a figure-8, and then you want to close your system by adding a locking carabiner, as seen here. So this is considered your master point, and this is your locking carabiner from which you can run your top rope belay system. On that note, I would suggest with a top rope system, definitely having opposite and opposed locking carabiners is best. For a top belay system, 1 carabiner works fine, but as I mentioned before, redundancy is always key. And little bonus tip, I always find that for when using thinner types of webbing or cordelettes, it's a lot harder to untie an overhand knot and a lot easier to untie a figure-8. So I often use the figure-8 instead. So that's everything I have for you for building a 3-point climbing anchor. I'd love to hear what you think, or if there was a certain tip that really stood out to you that you like, or if you have any additional suggestions, definitely drop them in the comments below. I love hearing your feedback. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like connecting with other outdoor enthusiasts, you should definitely consider checking out Summit. Summit is a social network that brings together adventure junkies from all around the world to exchange stories, share advice, and inspire each other. You might even make some new friends too. It's kind of like Facebook for outdoorsy people, but with better privacy, no ads, no spam, and tons of extras. You can join Summit by going to summit.theadventurejunkies.com or by clicking the link in the description below. You can find me in Summit too, so be sure to say hi when you join.